Okay, so now let's take a look at other quadrants. We know what happens in quadrant 1, but what about the other quadrants? Okay, so just to review, we want to find out what the coordinates are on the unit circle. Okay, so if we want this first one over here, we're going to go ahead and take our line, oops, and we're going to draw it through there. Okay, and we want to know what that point is on that line. All right, so if we go ahead and drop the perpendicular, we make a reference triangle. That's what it's called. It's called a reference triangle, and we need to know what that reference angle is. Okay, so we already know that it's 30 degrees, and we know that just because I told you. I took it over from the other side, so we have to always know what that angle is in order to figure that out. And again, when we want to figure out what the coordinate is, we need to know the x and the y. So we need to know what those two lengths are going over and up. So across from the 30-degree angle is 1/2. And then across from the 60-degree angle would be radical 3 over 2. So this coordinate right here is radical 3 over 2, 1/2. But what happens if we instead have an angle that's 150 degrees? Okay, so now we're given a 150-degree angle here. Okay, well, we're going to want to drop that perpendicular. So in order to drop the perpendicular, we need to know what that reference angle is. All right, so let's move this over here. Okay, and we'll get rid of these other shapes over here just because they're going to be in the way. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and take this triangle, hopefully, that's not it, and we're going to bring it here. So remember, we're looking at 150 degrees. Okay, so this is 150 degrees, which means our reference angle is 30 degrees. Well, now we go ahead and have a 30, 60, 90 again. Well, across from the 30 degrees is 1/2, and across from the 60 degrees is radical 3 over 2. However, when we go and put our coordinate up here, we have to remember that we went negative, so it's really a negative radical 3 over 2, and then up 1/2. Okay, so notice it's going to be the same. All right, so now let's go ahead and look at another angle. So instead of that one, now we're going to go ahead and look at 210 degrees. Okay, so we'll erase this for a moment. Okay, and let's look at 110 degrees. Well, when we look at 110 degrees, all right, we're going to take this. All right, and again, I'm sorry, I think I said 110 instead of 210. That's 210 degrees. So at this point here is 210. Well, that means our reference angle is 30 degrees. So again, this is 1/2. This time it's going to be negative though, and it's going to be negative radical 3 over 2. So here it's negative radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. And the last quadrant, quadrant 4, if we take this over here, oh boy, I just keep taking things away. Okay, over here, and I'm looking for this coordinate. Well, now we're at 330 degrees. So now we go all the way around to 330 degrees. Well, if this is 330, that means that our reference angle is 30. Okay, well, again, this is 1/2. This is radical 3 over 2. But this time the radical 3 over 2 is positive, but the 1/2 is negative. All right, so let's put our coordinate here as radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. So if you look, all of these are the same coordinates besides the positives and negatives. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to first figure out what the reference angle is, drop that perpendicular, figure out whether it's only going to be one or the other. It's either going to be a 30, 60, 90, or it's going to be a 45, 45, 90. Okay? There's only two choices. And then we're going to figure out what the coordinate is from there. Okay? So let's take a look here. So now these are still 30, 60, 90s. However, notice that the reference angle is 60 degrees instead. All right, so if we take this 60-degree triangle, and we go ahead and put it here, well, now this is 60 degrees. So across from it is the radical 3 over 2, but on the x-axis is the 1/2. So before, the x value was radical 3 over 2. This time the y value is radical 3 over 2. Okay, and you could go ahead and do that in each of them as well. So as we go around, this is what we need to know. We have this point here, and that point is 1, 0. This point here at 30 degrees, and I'm going to erase this for a second so we can just see that. Okay, so that point at 30 degrees is going to be, because this is our 30-degree angle here, it's going to be radical 3 over 2 and then 1/2. The y value is the 1/2. All right, then we have 45 degrees. Well, 45 degrees is easy. It's just radical 2 over 2 and radical 2 over 2. Okay, both of them are like that. We already did the 60 there. This is going to be 0, 1. Now, when we get on this side, okay, so this is 60 degrees here. Now we're going to get to 120 degrees, and then 135 degrees, and 150 degrees. Well, for 120, the reference angle is 60. Okay, so since the reference angle is 60, that means the x value is 1/2. But the x value is negative here, so it's negative 1/2 and radical 3 over 2. At 135, the reference angle is 45 degrees. So that means that it's radical 2 over 2, but again, the x is negative in this quadrant. Okay, 150 degrees, the reference angle is 30. Okay, so that means it's going to be negative radical 3 over 2, 1/2. All right, and as we keep going around, now we have, this was 90 degrees, I forgot to write that. This is 180 degrees, so at 180 degrees, it's going to be negative 1, 0. And then we have 210 degrees, and we have 225 degrees, and we have 240 degrees, and then 270. And then you keep on going with 300 degrees, and then this is going to be 335 degrees, and this would end up being 360. No, that's silly. Can't be 360, and this can't be 335. Okay, this is going to be 315, and this is going to be 330. Okay. and then 360. So as we go around, this again over here for 210 is a 30-degree. So 30-degree reference angles are going to have the same coordinates, and it's going to be both negative. So those are the coordinates there. 225 would have a 45-degree reference angle. So that's radical 2 over 2, but they're negative. Radical 2 over 2. And then this is going to be negative 1/2, negative radical 3 over 2. And this is going to be the coordinate negative 1, 0. And as we keep on going, this is going to be a 60-degree angle. So 60 degrees means the x value is 1/2, and it's going to be a positive 1/2, but the y value is negative. And then this point here is going to be radical 2 over 2, negative radical 2 over 2. And this point here is going to be radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. And that is the building of the unit circle. Okay, so in the practice questions, I'm going to ask you, I'm going to give you an angle, say 210. Okay, I'm going to ask you to find the coordinates on the unit circle at 210 degrees. So what you would have to do is you would have to draw where's 210. And like I said previously in other units, it really doesn't matter if you're drawing it at exactly the right place. It's really just as long as you get it inside the right quadrant. But say this is over here, that's going to be at 210 degrees. Okay, so we want to draw in our reference triangle. Now, if this is 210 and this is 180, the distance that it has to get back to 180 is going to be 30 degrees. So that's 30 degrees. This is 60 degrees. And now I'm going to go ahead and say that this is 1/2, but in this quadrant it's negative. And then the 60 across from the 60 degrees is going to be radical 3 over 2, and in this quadrant it's also negative. So the answer to the question is going to be negative radical 3 over 2, negative 1/2. Okay, so you're going to have to find the reference angle, and then you're going to label your triangle, and then find the coordinate that way. All right, I'm going to do one more. So if I were to ask you to find the coordinates at 330 degrees. Let's do 300 degrees. Okay, so at 300 degrees, now if I didn't have that nice unit circle there, I would just be on my scrap paper drawing an XY axis, and then I would say, okay, well, I know that 300 degrees is in the fourth quadrant. That's 300 degrees. So the rest of this must be 60 degrees to get to the 360. So that means that the reference angle is 60, this is 30, this is 90, which means this is 1/2 and this is radical 3 over 2, but it's negative in this quadrant. So the answer is going to be 1/2 negative radical 3 over 2. Okay, that's how you find the coordinates. Good luck with the practice.